When I heard the name IHOP growing up, I immediately thought of those fluffy and delicious pancakes. But that all changed in 2011 when I was introduced to the other IHOP. Oh, you didn't know there are two IHOPs? Yeah, me either. But if you're from Kansas City, Missouri, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. The International House of Prayer. Yay! A massive, hyper-charismatic youth movement that drew in hundreds of thousands of young people through their display of passionate worship and huge conferences that promised miracles, signs, and wonders. Is that gold dust? And in 2010, the International House of Pancakes caught wind of this mysterious church organization using their acronym without permission. And let me tell you something, the Pancake Mafia does not share its name with anyone. Forget about it. Not to mention their customers were not happy with constantly mixing up the two places. A Reddit comment from 2010 best explains the issue. I was hungry for some pancakes one day, so I plugged IHOP into my phone and found the nearest one. The bad thing was, when I got there, I discovered it was a house of prayer, not a pancake dispensary. Look, the quickest way to get a pancake in the shape of a horse's head under your pillow is by robbing from Sweet Daddy Pancake. And that's exactly what happened when the prayer house started serving food and raking in millions of dollars. After numerous unanswered cease and desist letters, IHOP filed a lawsuit against the ministry, but eventually settled outside of court, and the entire thing just mysteriously went away. Which brings into question the amount of secretive influence the International House of Prayer genuinely possessed. For instance, these guys owned a university with thousands of students, a team of powerful lawyers, influence over the local government, a network of wealthy businessmen, millions of dollars, and thousands of interns willing to give their lives for the movement. They bought up huge plots of land, entire neighborhoods and apartments. They even acquired the property of President Harry S. Truman. How are you gonna just buy the president's house like that? And sadly, as a new Christian void of good theology, I too was an IHOP supporter. Friends, when I was in college, I genuinely thought I was saved. And in my ignorance, I put all of my trust in prophetic figures because I didn't know the Bible, and I didn't know the truth of the gospel. I trusted the words of such men as Bill Johnson, Todd White, and sadly Mike Bickle and the International House of Prayer. It wasn't until I was actually saved that I realized how dark and sinister this cult-like organization and its founder truly was. It all began in 1982 when a local St. Louis pastor named Mike Bickle received a prophetic word from a supposed prophet named Augustine Alcala. After hearing the audible voice of God, Alcala says that Pastor Mike would lead a movement in Kansas City involving thousands of young people. Just 1 year later, Mike met another prophet named Bob Jones, who allegedly gave him the very same prophetic word as Alcala. Bob Jones was a part of a group coined the Kansas City Prophets, alongside another prophetic voice named Paul Cain. Both Bob Jones and Paul Cain had a major influence over Mike Bickle, and eventually through a series of prophetic claims, convinced Pastor Mike to start a prayer room that operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a mission to usher in the second coming of Christ.
And I was told that they had a major calling. One of them was intercession 24/7.
He said you're going to have 24-hour prayer in the spirit of the tabernacle of David with singers and musicians.
After purchasing a section of a strip mall in 1999, Pastor Mike Bickle and the International House of Prayer built a prayer room and officially began its mission of 24-hour prayer and worship. And when I say 24-hour a day prayer and worship, they have somebody in that prayer room 24 hours a day. Somebody's in there worshiping and praying, like at all times. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands of young musicians holding time slots and being in that IHOP prayer room to keep the mission going strong.
This was intense. These were full worship teams, 300 people in the room at any given moment, with 500 to 1,000 full-time intercessory missionaries.
And some of the most prominent worship leaders connected to IHOP are Cory Asbury, Misty Edwards, and Rick Pino. Cory Asbury is the worship leader behind the massively successful song Reckless Love.
You were singing holy. That was nice.
And despite spending 8 years at IHOP, has been scrubbed from the entire IHOP archives online. That took place shortly after he distanced himself from the entire movement, so go figure.
And IHOP, Kansas City, hot button topic now, but that is where I met God.
Misty Edwards is best known as the face of IHOP worship and released 8 studio albums, but then tragically confessed to partaking in a years-long affair with another well-known worship leader named Kevin Prosh. Or Prosh. I don't really know. All I know is he's a lot older. Like grandpa status. Not to mention, he's also known for cheating on every wife he's ever had and using his musical talents to manipulate those women.
Do I think Kevin abused Misty? Personal opinion, yeah, I do. We look at his personal history. He's got a history of manipulating and preying on women. I mean, by his own admission in 1999, when he said he had all those adulterous relationships, you read what he said, and it's like, boy, that sounds like abuse. Like, I don't know whether they were in his congregation or not, but he said he used his gifting to manipulate them without any concern for them or their well-being. That sounds like abuse, right? So here's a predator. I would say Kevin Prosh is a predator.
There's a lot more to the story, but Misty and Kevin lived together unmarried for 2 years and also admitted to having illegal fun, but were eventually caught while driving. They were promptly arrested and charged with DUIs. Misty Edwards and Kevin Prosh received no church discipline, to my knowledge, and continued to remain in leadership until all this became public knowledge. Oh look, Grandpa Kev has his shirt off. What an awful day to have eyeballs. Rick Pino is another worship leader with ties to IHOP. And although he didn't come directly from IHOP, he often led the annual IHOP conference called One Thing. But the biggest issue I have with Rick, as well as Kevin Prosh, Misty Edwards, and a lot of the IHOP musicians, is that they wrote creepy sensual worship songs that made Jesus feel more like a romantic lover than a holy God. To prove my point, I decided to type the lyric examples into AI. And I also ran out of B-roll, so... How I love you. I lay my head upon your heart. Take me to your chambers. Lead me by the hand. I can't take my eyes off of you. I can't take my eyes off of you. Your love is like sweetness overflows, pouring from your lips, kisses from above, let the heavens drip. When it's just me and you, I can't remember storms. All I can do is melt in your arms, my only love. In your eyes, all-consuming fire. In your arms, all that I desire. I want to behold you, my love.
I want to be held by you, my love.
I'm going to move on now. It's worth noting that IHOP has managed to generate the support of some major figures in the American Christian world, from Francis Chan, Matt Maher, Bill Johnson, Sam Storms.
Mike Bickle is probably my best friend in this world. I know this man to the depths of his soul. I can't think of more biblically orthodox, humble, Christ-exalting individual.
Todd White, Heidi Baker, Dr. Michael Brown, and even John Piper.
That I remember even asking John Piper, I go, man, what do you know about Mike Bickle? Like, I'm getting so many people angry, you know, and kind of asking his permission almost. Like, he goes, Francis, if you're asking me if I'm mad at you because you're going to speak for Mike Bickle, no, I'm not. He goes, I tell you, he loves Jesus.
Thousands of young people a year flock to IHOP to attend the prayer house and the One Thing conference in search of miracles, signs, and prophetic encounters. Sadly, these young people were used as workhorses at their own expense and lived in poverty as unpaid interns.
The victims of IHOP are not just people who are sexual abuse victims. They're almost everyone who worked there experienced, in my opinion, a financial system that was exploitative and did not care for people.
These people cannot live on this. And to expect people to be able to raise support from many of these are young people that they came, it's not like they had a whole life of a vibrant professional friend.
And if my dad was the number 2 leader, the vice chairman of the board, the associate director, and our family was struggling and had scarcity, and our family didn't have sustainability, how much more the person who just moved in and they're 25 with 2 kids under the age of 2, and how much they suffered even more.
I knew a person who worked there, and they had to go to clothes closets and food banks to make it. I never liked how IHOP did not help their staff.
Young people who are ignorant of the gospel and wooed by the promises of excitement found in charismatic signs and wonders looked for something more at IHOP. And one of those young people looking for more was Tyler Deaton. Tyler left his home state of Texas with a group of Christians from his university and moved into group housing to attend IHOP University. Alongside him was his future wife, Bethany Deaton. He quickly rose through the ranks at IHOP, gaining influence within the community, and eventually started a large Bible study group. But behind the scenes, things were far from what they appeared. Tyler and his followers lived in group housing that fostered an environment where his influence would ultimately go unchecked. In this shared living space, Tyler's control over the group intensified, and the lines between spiritual leadership and psychological manipulation began to blur. At the same time, Tyler and Bethany's marriage began to fall apart as his deeply closeted sin came to light. Tyler Deaton, without a doubt, became what most people would consider a cult leader, using his spiritual authority to become romantically involved with multiple male members of the group on the basis of spiritual enlightenment. What started as a seemingly innocent Bible study group eventually spiraled into a full-blown death cult that ended in absolute tragedy. In 2012, Tyler Deaton's new bride, Bethany Deaton, was found unalive under suspicious circumstances.
Bethany Deaton, she died, and it was being investigated whether or not it was a suicide or.
It wasn't long before horrifying details emerged, linking her demise to the inner workings of Tyler's group.
A chilling tale of murder made to look like suicide just keeps getting stranger tonight.
One man is charged, but the investigation continues. The International House of Prayer says it's coming out with its first statement about this case.
This story is very complex, so I'm going to save it for another video, but in my opinion, after reviewing all the information, Tyler Deaton and his cult are 100% responsible for the death of Bethany Deaton. Tyler Deaton now goes by Tyler Sterling and is married to another man. Ironically, he works as a counselor in Allen, Texas, and has very little to no online presence. The case of Bethany Deaton remains open to this day.
It's still an open case, but it could be tried in the future if there's the right evidence and the right timing. So it's not a close case to this day, which is why I can't really talk about it much.
Understand.
In case I'm called to the witness stand to be a witness.
Not only are there major issues surrounding claims of false prophecy, but nearly every leader Mike Bickle surrounded himself with were caught in scandals that disqualified them from ministry. Augustine Alcala was caught romantically abusing young men, to which Mike Bickle quickly hid and dismissed as leadership differences.
A lot of you know Augustine. He's been involved here for about the first year and a half, and some of you have wondered, where is Augustine anyway? And I just say, I don't want to get real involved in that, but we've communicated on a few occasions, and we're not in a place of agreement as to where the standard of God's end time people should be.
Bob Jones was eventually caught abusing his gifts to become physically involved with two women who attended a vineyard church in Kansas City, to which the famous vineyard leader John Wimber remarked, "The sins for which Bob has been removed from ministry, including his gifts to manipulate people for his personal desires, physical misconduct, rebelling against pastoral authority, slandering leaders, and the promotion of bitterness within the body of Christ." Yikes.
Now, Bob Jones was a very unusual individual, quirky beyond words.
Immoral. Immoral.
Now, let's be clear about that.
Okay.
See, that's really slanderous. There was one incident in which Bob Jones manipulated two ladies.
It's not slanderous to say that somebody is sexually immoral when they tell women to strip naked in their office so that God can give them a specific prophetic word. Now, he didn't have sex with them, if that's what you mean. So does that make it not quite as bad? Is it sort of okay-ish? Seems like he's implying that. I know he isn't, but the language here is, well, it's the language that allows people like Mike Bickle to continually have a platform for decades. That's what it is.
Paul Cain was confronted on allegations of unhealthy drinking habits and numerous physical relationships with males, to which he initially denied, but later confessed. Not only did Mike Bickle defend those two men, he also defended hiring a PDF file named Brad Tebbett, who engaged in inappropriate contact of a 16-year-old while in leadership at a church in Modesto, California at the age of 28. Soon after, allegations began to come out against IHOP founder Mike Bickle. In response, close friends Sam Storms and Francis Chan went to confront Mike at his house, but were turned away by none other than disgraced pastor Chris Reed. I'm still not sure what Chris Reed was doing at Mike Bickle's house, but it's worth noting that he also was charged with inappropriate contact with another woman and was forced to resign from the ministry.
I take full responsibility for this, and I'm deeply sorry that you have found out
bullcrap
about this.
In 2023, after years of allegations, Mike Bickle, the founder of the International House of Prayer, confessed to inappropriate behavior with a minor and subsequently stepped down from the ministry. Since then, over 20 victims have come forward with abuse claims. Numerous leaders have stepped down, and the ministry has slowly faded into obscurity. Augustine Alcala, Bob Jones, Paul Cain, Kevin Prosh, Tyler Deaton, Brad Tebbett, Chris Reed, and Mike Bickle, all influential leaders in positions of power who use their influence and fame to abuse others. Friends, beware of any church or movement that is surrounded by one man who claims they offer something new and exciting outside of the simple gospel. Whether it's a new revelation or new interpretations, if it's new, it's not true. And if it's true, it's not new. We have everything we need found in the perfect Word of God, and that will never change. Also, shout out to the Wake Up and Win podcast. They cover the IHOP fiasco in great detail. Go check them out, and we'll catch you in the next one. Okay, bye.